What is going on, everyone, and welcome to r/ProRevenge. Now, in today's first story, OP is fired from his job for no particular reason, but in doing so, he actually costs his company over £100,000. Let's get straight into the story and find out just how that happened. I was fired and made the company lose over £100,000. So, I used to work at a family-run builders merchants and was a trade sales advisor. I was fired for bringing up health and safety concerns in an email sent to a manager, and for the fact I was apparently unhappy in my role. I did nothing wrong, but they still sacked me. Now, when I worked there, I had clients that I had built good relationships with, and even become friends with some of them. They would get me beers and whiskey at Christmas, or have barbecues and so on outside of work. Anyway, back to the revenge. I was fired, which in my opinion was unfair, and it was during this COVID-19 pandemic. I'd worked through the entire way until I was fired. So I wanted revenge. I contacted multiple clients and friends, and most of them said, okay, we won't use that company if they treat the staff the way they did me. One client easily spends over £100,000 a year easily in the top 3 customers they had. He used them because I would get him the best prices, etc, etc. As soon as I'm fired, I call him and let him know what happened, and he straight away promises not to use them again. So, big middle finger to the owners of that S-hole. I hope you learn to treat your employees better or go under. Oh, I tell you what, OP, I'm not getting very good vibes from your ex-company through this story at all. So pretty much you're telling me you call up your boss and you let him know, look, I'm a bit worried. We have some health and safety concerns. Can you look into them, please? And because you're, kind of auditing your own company and looking out for the health and safety of your own company and its employees, your boss is like, nah, you're gone. That is not a good boss right there, and definitely not somebody that I would want to work for. I do think it's pretty amazing, though, that they kick you out and you're just like, you know what? Fair enough, but now you're going to have no clients anymore, and I'm going to cost you hundreds of thousands of pounds. It's so funny. Like, imagine they're like, oh no, you know what, guys? Imagine them in a board meeting. They're like, guys, we've messed up here. We've lost a lot of money, and you're just, chilling, no job, but yeah, you know that you've cost them a lot of money. Now, moving on to our second story. Fired from last job, but I got the last laugh. I worked at a retail chain that sold pet supplies and products. When I started working there, it was great. Family owned, and everyone I worked with was fantastic. The owners eventually wanted to retire and sold the small chain to an investment group. Once the investment group took over, almost all but a few employees were let go, forced out, or just quit. I hung on for a little while longer before I got promoted at my other job. The new company brings in a new manager to my store. My store was the top performing store in the entire chain, bringing in about $10,000 to $12,000 per day on average. It was always more on weekends and especially around the holidays. The new manager is a Mr. Company man. Company told him they only want employees around for 2 to 3 years. Myself and 2 others had been there for 10 plus. So naturally, he began ruffling feathers and giving us all a hard time. Unfortunately, he decided on me first. Now, Mr. Company Man found out I work 2 jobs. The 2 jobs are not in related fields, so there was no chance of any conflicts of interest on my end. However, my second job requires me to work nights and weekends. When Mr. Company Man found this out, he demanded I work nights/weekends there, so it was fair for everyone. I didn't work nights and weekends there because I was that store's only OSHA certified forklift operator, and deliveries didn't come at night. They came weekday mornings every day. But Mr. Company Man didn't want to hear that and told me I either had to work nights and weekends or that day would be my last. I told him, do not threaten me with a good time. I suppose today is my last day then. I was pretty annoyed about it, but it's not a big deal now. It ended up being the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I went home early, didn't finish my shifts because F 'em. But when I got home, I decided to call my local OSHA inspector and report them for not having a certified operator on staff, as well as numerous other hazards. Needless to say, they lost close to 3 weeks' profit from all the violations the inspector found. I was surprised they even showed up. In my state, the inspector will call you back after an inspection and tell you if your claims were founded or not. Mine were, and Mr. Company Man got his butt chewed out so bad he ended up quitting. You know what, I guess that's the thing when you do fire an employee, they're going to know so much about that company, and you know, if they want to, like OP right here, why can't they just report you for the things that they already know are going wrong in the company? Because, you know, they've been there for 10 plus years, they work there every single day, they know what's going wrong, they know the violations, they know who a forklift operator is, for goodness sake. So yeah, you've got to be careful as a boss. If you're going to fire somebody, you better make sure they've got no dirt on you, or the company could be in real trouble, that's for sure. I mean, yeah, like, fair enough, the majority of ex-employees aren't going to go out for revenge like this guy, but thank God you did, OP, because, yeah, this company and this company man, the manager especially, definitely deserve this justice. Now moving on to our final story, I did to my neighbour what they did to others. To start, I bought a house with the intention of doing a flip. When I moved in, the self-appointed block captain let me know who they were the first day. Sadly, they were my next door neighbours. I tried to be friendly, but listening to them, I realised how horrible they were, and I just tried to still be civil. My significant other kept saying, just wait for it to be our turn. Sorry, a self-appointed block captain. How much of a loser do you have to be to call yourself the captain of the block? Jesus. They bragged about, through their contracts with the city, forcing people to make improvements on their houses, getting undesirable renters out of the houses, and just harassing people in general. As I worked on flipping my house, the wife became a worse thorn in my side. To start, she demanded I put up a fence so people would quit cutting through my yard and scaring her. Then, her and the husband demanded I take care of the weeds in the yard or they will do it and bill me. After a storm, a tree scraped their shingles and they asked for $1,200 to replace them. The tree was there before I moved in, and by co-ed, they are responsible to cut back the branches to the property line. When I wouldn't pay, they had a relative jump my fence and cut the trees down. Needless to say, I just began to ignore them, so the wife became a constant gnat and moved on to another target. Then, one day, as I was tearing down my deck for a patio, I realised she'd put a feral cat colony on a section of my property. I'd wondered why all the stray cats were around, and I finally found out. I reached out to the city and demanded it be removed, but they said she followed the law on getting it in place. As I tried to get it shut down, she began unhinged behaviour, from standing in her window staring at me, yelling out the window at me, to hitting the fence with items to scare my dog. Here, my revenge started. I started by filing a HRO, or harassment restraining order, against the wife, and had it granted ex parte with the evidence I provided. Of course, she contested, as it was defamatory to her character. Before the hearing, the husband tried to physically intimidate me, so I just filed one against him as well, and it was also granted ex parte. In the hearing, it came up that there was an HRO against the husband as well. They dodged being served until I had it published as a means of service. I started to make complaints about them and their house as well. Also, I made police calls when necessary. As I did this, the other neighbours began to realise they could do to them what they had done to them and others. For example, as I was having my front door replaced, I needed a building work permit. I knew they were doing internal remodelling, so I called a city inspector and they were fined for not having a permit themselves. As she ranted, the wife that is, at the inspector, he looked at my window and saw I had mine displayed. Their back porch became hoarded, so I made another call to a city inspector and they had to clear it out. Then they had a broken window on the porch door, so I called an inspector and they had to replace the door. Next, the paint on their house was peeling, so I called an inspector and they had to repaint. The inspector also found the wood underneath was rotted and their front porch was sloping, so they needed to fix the front porch, sections of wood, and repaint. Through all of this, they had cameras up to prove they were not doing the things I said, i.e. hitting the fence. They also pointed a camera at my backyard. As it was legal to point a camera into my yard, and a part of my HRO was her intrusive watching behaviours, I gave the camera the middle finger on my way to and from my garage. When the wife complained, with the city tiring of her at this point, their response was she was admitting to intrusively watching me. The fight over the cat colony came to an end when I realised one of the cats had a serious disease and I began to capture them and turn them into animal control. Don't worry, animal control was part of the feral cat program, so they would not be put down, but the neighbour would have to pay a fine to get each cat out or have the colony closed. Finally, I caught the sick one and it had rabies. Part of the program was for her to capture each new cat and have it vaccinated, something she admitted to willing not doing on her GoFundMe for the colony. I soon had that GoFundMe shut down when I provided the evidence that she was not using the funds as she stated they were going to be used. The city now had to act to close the colony. The person at Animal Control who wouldn't respond to my complaints was actually fired. The neighbours called in a city mediator, who we met with and presented all the evidence. But we said we would not meet with the neighbours, and provided him with extremely racist tweets these guys had made about our other neighbours. The city then cut ties with them as community leaders. With their power to bully gone, and having spent what I can only imagine in fines and repairs, like they forced on other neighbours, after 14 years they sold their house and moved out. Way out to the suburbs where they only have one neighbour about 50 yards away. They knew I was wrapping up my flip and would be out in less than a year. Without being able to bully their neighbours, with people having their back, they seemed to have no further reason to stay. Needless to say, I did several more things to wear them down. Finally, when I listed my house, it was sold, while theirs was still on the market. As a final FU to them, I reported to the county they had both the new and old house listed as their homestead, meaning they were paying less in property taxes, so they got hit with more fines on my way out. Oh, this story is so good because you've just used their exact technique that they've probably been employing for years on their other neighbors to get their way against them. It's amazing. You know, you come in and they're like, you know, straight away, no, you have to pay damages on this, repair on this, tax on this. And you're like, okay, fine, but I'll match you. And in fact, I'll raise you. And now I'm going to go through the entire, you know, government document about neighboring societies and you know, see which sections you are for and which you are against, and then call an inspector to just ruin your life and probably cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Amazing stuff. And now they can't even sell their home. That is just the icing on top of the cake. OP, you are a legend. A very pedantic legend, I must say, but it was definitely worth it in this story. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of r/ProRevenge. I really hope you have enjoyed it. If you did, and you want more right away, check out this playlist of all my ProRevenge videos. There are some absolute crackers in there, especially the one you can see right now. Click on that. It's a great story. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, click on this button. And if you want some nice, fresh clothing for Christmas, then you can also check out my merch right here. It really supports me and the channel. So yeah, it'd be greatly appreciated.